Hey guys, welcome back to an episode by Brand World, and today we are going to be doing another Save the World video, kind of my favorite weapons. Like, if you remember a while ago, the link will be down in the description, but I did a Fortnite Save the World top 10 favorite weapons. But back then, I was like power level 94 or something like that, and I didn't know as much about the game. And some of those schematics have definitely changed, of course, and not even all those were god rolled, but now I have, like 30 something 130 god rolls. Yeah, so just some things real quick. First off, also on that video, I got gameplay with every single weapon, and I talked about every single weapon, but this one, since there's so many, I'm just gonna put some gameplay of a couple games over it, and, I use most of the weapons on the video, on this video, but not all of them. But some of them that I didn't use on this video, I did use on the last video. Yeah, but I will also be using pretty much my new main class, the one that I usually run in just like regular missions when I'm not using a constructor or when I'm not in a private farming mission. Yeah, so in the gameplay that's coming up, I will also show you I'll show you all my loadouts. So yeah, and I will just do some gameplay. But basically, I'm going to rate all of them in categories, because like you can't really rate ARs compared to swords, in my opinion. So I'm just gonna go through each of the weapon classes, and also traps will not be on here, because as you can see, most of my traps are 130. But only my gas traps are actually god roll, because the rest of them do perfectly fine in endurance, not god roll. And I have each of those for like what I need them for and whatnot. But all these 130s are god rolls, or all these 130s are god roll. And also, if you're wondering why I'm doing this, and I said I wasn't gonna do this, and if you looked in the comments of the last video, I said I wasn't gonna do it until I was like power level 130, max power level 131. And as you can see, I am about halfway through power level 129. So I'm almost there, but the reason I'm doing it is because Season X is coming to an end, and I figured that I would do this because of course, I've only been playing Save the World since like mid-Season 7, but I'd figure I'd just do this because like Season X is like the end of the first 10 seasons of Fortnite, and I just figured I would do it with all the schematics that came out throughout the first 10 seasons of Save the World. I would do the ones that I have 130 god rolled. So yeah, so finally, let's get into this video. So I will show all my like schematics real quickly, but if you want to see like specifically what rolls or material or whatever all of them are, you can either pause on them. I'm not going to go through all of them, so you can either pause on whatever schematics you want to look at, or you can search me up on Fortnite DB. My username is brownworld_YT, as you can see on the video, and get a good look at them there. But yeah, so let's just get right into this video finally. So starting out with the ARs category, in last place, we have the Wraith, and that's because, I know a lot of people, this is their favorite AR. It's like the most heavy crit damage build, or crit build, of any AR in the game. But what I've learned about this weapon is, unless if you're like truly depending on crit, and you just have a flat out crit build, it does not hold up. And it's still good, but it's just like, I just noticed, like, I mean, the DPS is way less than any of my other ARs. So you don't really have that to rely on, so it's just the crit. So I mean, it hits crits, of course, really often, but like, if it doesn't, then it doesn't really do much. Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty good with my main soldier loadout, but pretty much anything else, it's just average, really. But yeah, still a good weapon. So yeah, so next up is Candy Corn LMG. I'm not a huge fan of LMGs, just because of like, you gotta have them like, you gotta have like, if you just use them a lot, they can run out of durability very quickly. And also they burn through ammo like the quickest out of any weapon, and also they usually take a little while to reload. Yeah. But this one is pretty darn good. I would say it was pretty overrated for a little bit, but now I feel like it's kind of underrated because all the Scamwood kids got into Nocturnos and Jackos and whatnot instead of candy corn LMG. I remember going candy corn LMG was big. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty darn good crit build weapon, as well as of just like the Ginger Blaster, it drops healing candy corn pickups, but the Ginger Blaster drops the healing gumdrop pickups. But yeah, still pretty darn good, and yeah, I do like to use it, just not my favorite, but it looks very cool and is pretty fun to use. So next up is Gamatron 9000 from my favorite set so far from Save the World, the Retro Sci-Fi set. You'll notice there's a lot of weapons on this list from that set. But yeah, the Gamatron 9000, it is definitely the best burst AR in the game, and it's not one of the, like, it's not like the semi-automatic guns, if you're thinking about that, where you have to press the trigger and it shoots as fast as you can click your mouse, whatever. You can just hold it down and it bursts. So yeah, but it just really has really good, a really good crit build again. And most people go with the 6th perk of, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's like it builds up crit damage or something as it goes. But yeah, I actually went with the expanding ring just because all my ARs have like different uses and stuff, and this one's mainly for like crowd control, so that ring definitely helps. But yeah, it looks and sounds very cool, and yeah, just really cool weapon, and definitely a very good AR. So yeah, so number one is of course the Pain Train. You guys know this is my number one on my last video for overall weapons, and yes, it is still my favorite AR overall. I did change the rolls on it from last time. Of course, last time it was just like a damage build, but this time, since I know a lot more about Save the World, and I'm pretty much a like top tier endgame player, I did change the rolls to crit damage, crit rating, reload speed, in damage. So yeah. But yeah, just really, especially with the stacking damage perk as a 6th perk, it's really good. It just really packs a punch, and just overall, it's really just shreds. And it is just definitely a very good weapon. Plus, of course, as I showed in the last video, it makes train sounds when you reload or pull it out or whatever. And I mean, it looks like a train. Definitely one of the most unique and cool looking weapons in the game, I think. Yeah. So an honorable mention, or what I would count, like, it's kind of weird because you might be wondering, what about the bundle bus? Which, yes, that is in my ARs. And honestly, I would rank that very highly, but the reason I have to, like, just not even rank it really is because I don't really know, like, I think it's kind of weird that it's ranked as an AR, because, if you use it as a regular AR, you're kind of dumb, because, I mean, that it's way too overpowered, like, on anything but maybe high level huskies and, miss monsters. But other than that, like, I saw this guy in a random give a, bundle bus to a defender for some reason, and it was just like shooting husklings with a bundle bus. But yeah, this thing is mainly, it's kind of like a sniper mixed with an AR in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, it's just weird because compared to the other ARs, like, those are just like fully automatic or burst, like, AR looking weapons and acting weapons, but this is like completely different. So yeah, so this is mainly just for miss monsters. But yeah, absolutely love the bundle bus. So yeah, so next up is shotguns. So in last place we have the Woofer, which is from the current latest set, the Boombox set. And that's because I heard a lot of people talking about that it was really good, and I had one of my friends on Discord, like, tell me, or show me, like, what rolls he had on his, because he was saying he was, like, one-shotting smashers and stuff. But I was kind of disappointed when I got rolled in and everything, and it has, like, the perfect rolls for it. But, like, the range is less than the Pulsar 9000, and it's just really, like, really low range. Plus, like, when it shoots out, like, this, like, kind of rainbowish color thing, but it's very hard to see, and surprisingly, although it's literally a subwoofer shotgun, you pretty much can't hear it, so, like, you can barely tell when you're shooting it. And the dancing perk on, like, these boombox weapons is nice. For sure, and definitely slows them down, stalls the enemies. But overall, it's just, I feel like, I mean, unless if you're shooting it while like during Rock and Riff, that's the only time that it really does much. And just overall, I don't really feel like it holds up. Like, unless if it's in Rock and Riff, I just would rather use the next two shotguns out of my inventory. Yeah, definitely looks cool and is unique, but just not my cup of tea when it comes to shotguns. So next up is the helium shotgun. Back on the last video, this is my only shotgun. But basically, of course, it is like one of the farthest range shotguns in the game, but it is a projectile, but it shoots like a little like cool neon blast that also shoots a little orb out of it that pierces enemies. Yeah, so it also staggers them as well, or mine does at least on the 6th perk, so I also have my 5th perk is damage to like staggered enemies and whatnot. Yeah, and also looks cool, it sounds cool, and it really is kind of pretty when it shoots, but the only reason is because why it's second is compared to my other one, it's basically like, why would you use this one when I have that one? Yeah, so I would say it still does hold up, but it's just with the projectile, I'll talk about it more on the next one, but with the projectile only being a small orb, it's on moving enemies, it's not the easiest thing to hit them with. It's kind of like the ghost pistol, yeah, but still pretty darn good. But the next up is Pulsar, the Pulsar 9000, and yes, I will say, this currently, ever since it came out, is my most favorite weapon in Fortnite Save the World. I, like, 90% of the time you will see me just using this. Of course, unless if I'm, not, for those other 10% for whatever reason. Whether it's, like, sniping or ARs or, whatever else. But this thing, I mean, no matter what loadout you're using, it pretty much always shreds. But if you're using my soldier loadout, with that extra shotgun crit damage, that extra crit chance and crit damage overall, and especially if it's during Rock and Riff, like I've never, like to tell you how good this thing is, I've never even had to craft a 130 because even in 140 4-player missions, even without my soldier loadout, this thing still holds up. Like I could use a 130, but I just don't really feel any need to, and then especially with my soldier loadout, it still just shreds. And what's crazy about it is what I was saying is what I was scared about when I first heard about this coming out and what it was. I felt like it was just gonna be like a kind of reskin of the helium shotgun, but then I saw pictures of like the circle that it shoots, and yes, it is a projectile like the helium shotgun, but this thing shoots an expanding ring, and it's not like a slowly expanding ring. It pretty much just shoots out and expands. And it's very slightly longer range than the woofer, but basically it's like 2 tiles and it's about as wide as 1 tile. So basically as many enemies as you can fit in 2 tiles in front of you, it will hit. And on critical hits, which is like every other hit just about, it explodes and sends little shards everywhere. And yeah, that absolutely, like, the crowd control is just insane, and this thing just absolutely shreds anything in its way, and I just, like, can't even explain how good this thing is. Basically, if, like, you need a shotgun, I recommend this. And if you're wondering, if you're looking at my rolls, pretty much every single one of my 130 god rolls is energy, except for the ones that are like locked on physical or whatnot. And if you're wondering why, it's because first off, energy is like, I just think the most universal and versatile element because it does 75% damage to any enemy, while any other element only does like full damage to its like specific like alternate element. So I just like energy the best, but also with my Cyberclops class with energy weapons, it chains and just absolutely wipes anything in front of me or around me. But also in my soldier loadout and a couple of my other loadouts, I use Cyberclops. So on top of that extra damage with the energy, I also like in a few of my loadouts have that energy constantly shocking other enemies, so my crowd control is also just always insane. And with the Pulsar 9000 exploding on crits and shocking enemies with the Cyberclops thing, this thing's insane. And on top of that, on top of all that, it also, I have a reload speed perk on it, but even without it, like the reload speed, as you'll see in the gameplay, is insane. Like, it reloads very, very quick. It shoots a few energy shells with each ammo cost, like each shot. But that doesn't really matter because it just reloads so quick. And it also, as well, has a pretty fast fire rate. So enough talking about that. And again, it also looks very cool. So yeah, so next up is pistols. So in last place, we got the Ghost Pistol, the most infamous, so bad it's good weapon in Save the World. The only reason I did this, brought it up to 130 god roll, is I was asking everybody on the Fortnite Discord if I should, just as my first and so far only like meme weapon. And yeah, I did. I did put legitimate rolls on it, not just like reload speeds or whatever. But yeah, I will say when it hits crits, it's pretty darn good, and it does like as well as the helium shotgun. But when it doesn't hit crits and it has the projectile shooting, it's really just not that great. And the only really good redeeming thing about it is that it pierces shields. But yeah, other than piercing shields and when it hits crits, it's pretty doo-doo, which kind of sucks because it looks cool, and if you could pair this with the Spectral Blade, it would be kind of awesome. But yeah, that's why I have that. So next up is a Tiny Instrument of Death. I like this like a little too much back in the lower end of the game, and then I stopped liking it towards like mid-canny. And now I don't really use it. I changed the rolls on it, so it is better than it was. But it's still just really not that great, and I would pretty much choose any other pistol over it. Yeah, I mean, the affliction damage is nice, and I mean, it's cool how you can like guide it like a kind of guided missile by moving your character, like looking around and stuff. But it's just really not that great. I do like the idea of it and everything, but I don't know, it's just really not practical. So yeah, so next up is the Founder's Revolt. I pretty much just 130 god rolled it just because it's like the only, I mean, I have the 3 other Founder's weapons from like the Founder's llamas, but this is the only Founder's weapon that like I can't recycle and whatnot. Yeah, so of course, its iconic perk, the bullets can chain I'm pretty sure they always do chain to one nearby enemy. So yeah, so this with energy combined with Cyberclops can be pretty darn good. But what I will say is, even with like the really good perks I have on it, I just noticed like until it's really good until mid-canny, and then past mid-canny it just really doesn't hold up. And like I was using a 130 god roll Founder's Revolt with my Cyberclops loadout by myself, and I think it was a 116 or 124 mission, and it was not, I mean, other than regular husks, it was not really holding up. So it's pretty good, but just doesn't really hold up. But yeah, so next up is the Hot Mix, still a pretty new weapon, but yeah, it's basically like the Plasmatron 9000. But yeah, it actually takes mini ammo, surprisingly, but it looks really cool, and it actually shoots in little bursts of 2, and of course has the dancing perk. When you eliminate enemies, nearby enemies will dance, and also it has the chance to apply Fire Affliction. But the bad thing about it is the chance that it will apply Fire Affliction is very low, that it doesn't really count towards the good of the weapon. Sadly, and also Fire Affliction is only really good for like nature enemies. Yeah, so I would say it's about tied with my Plasmatron 9000, honestly, because the next pick is the Plasmatron 9000. So yeah, so I would just say like they're pretty much tied, but I would say I almost like this one just a tad bit better. Just because, I mean, I would say it looks pretty much just as cool, but also I just I just think, like, of course, the rings that it shoots are a little bit bigger and cover a little more ground than the Hot Mix does. And yeah, the range isn't as near as long as the Hot Mix, but also with the Plasmatron on crit hits, it explodes with the shards just like the Pulsar 9000, and I just really love that 6th perk. And it hits crits quite often, and also except for like the cooling rate, you can pretty much just shoot it non-stop. So I mean, you can just, and they also like buffed the fire rate, so I mean, it shoots pretty darn quickly. And yeah, and it really shreds. I think it's a pretty underrated weapon, but I just think it's very slightly better than the hot mix in my opinion. But yeah, so next up is the Jax Revenge. This thing is absolutely insane. I of course mainly went for a headshot build with a side of crit. But yeah, of course it's a flintlock. It looks cool when you pull it out and do that spin, and when you shoot it and everything. The reload speed, I put a reload speed perk on it, I believe. But it's of course very pretty darn fast because it is a one shot and then you gotta reload. So I would recommend a reload speed perk. I'm pretty sure I have it on there because it does reload speed pretty darn quick. But yeah, this thing, if you, it has the most, I believe the biggest headshot multiplier in the game, because like the regular 130 god roll damage for me is like 100,000 something, I believe, but then the headshot damage is like 200,000 or 300,000, so it's like, if you hit a headshot, that's almost that's literally about 200,000 extra damage. But if you think about it, like I did it a few times, if you hit a headshot while using like my main soldier class during Rock and Riff, then and you hit a crit, so a crit headshot during Rock and Riff, I don't even know, like I have literally one-shotted, I believe it was a power level 134 smasher, and it was a fire smasher as well, and I one-shotted it, and it wasn't even a 130 Jax Revenge, it was literally a 106 Jax Revenge, and I one-shotted a fire smasher with it. So that just shows you right there, so this is kind of like the bundle bust, mainly just meant for mist monsters, but it also has insane impact. So a lot of times it will stop like blasters from blasting and whatnot. But yeah, absolutely love that weapon. Very, very good and very insane. And it also pierces. So if you like all piercing things, if you get it in the right direction and line up some enemies and just like aim right down on their heads, you can just shred whole lines of enemies with this thing. But number one is the Ginger Blaster once again. You guys know I have absolutely loved this thing ever since I unlocked it from surviving for half an hour in Fortnite. And yeah, I just absolutely love how it looks. I love how it sounds when you like shoot enemies and whatnot. And again, it drops, it's like the candy corn LMG, but instead of dropping healing candy corn pickups, it drops healing gumdrop pickups. But yeah, the crit damage and crit rating again is pretty high on this, but but also along with that, it also is good with headshots, because like because it has very high like crit rating and crit damage, but at the same time it still has like one of the higher headshot multipliers, which is crazy because you can't even really put all those rolls on it, but it still has it kind of base there, which is pretty crazy. But also I would have ranked it lower, one lower than Jax Revenge, and I would have put Jax Revenge number one. But the reason I didn't is because the Ginger Blaster, I feel, is like a Jax Revenge. If you kind of took the shot from Jax Revenge and split it into like 6 shots that you could shoot faster, because it has a pretty darn fast fire rate, a very fast reload speed. But it also, again, has very high impact and crit rating and headshot at the same time. So yeah, so I believe I changed one of the perks on it, and yeah, it definitely made it even better. So yeah, so that is it for my pistols. So next up is for SMGs. There's only one that I actually have, which is, of course, mainly because they just came out with the SMG subclass. Of course, most of the weapons have been in the game, but they just added the SMG subclass now. So yeah, and added like the SMG transform schematics and SMG page in the collection book and SMG eliminations daily quest and whatnot. But yeah, so the one and only SMG that I have in here is the Silent Specter. Yes, I finally unslid out of my collection book a while ago and put all the rolls on it that I wanted to, and I got the juicy 6 perk of affliction damage, just like on my Wraith. But on this, I of course also have the 5th perk of damage to afflicted targets. So it has the same rolls as my Pain Train, but then it like just passes it. on that last perk there, because then it does, instead of that plus 30% damage roll that I have on my pain train, I can have the plus 45% damage to afflicted targets, which it deals affliction damage to any enemy you shoot. So therefore, instead of doing plus 30% consistent damage, it's doing plus 45% consistent damage. So yes, surprisingly, I hate to admit it, but something has passed my pain train in like my favorite. Of course, pain train is still my favorite AR and still my favorite like looking weapon in the game so far. But the Silent Specter for overall, just like actually like using it and whatnot, it just shreds anything, and I'm just like amazed whenever I shoot it how quick it kills stuff, even miss monsters and anything. Yeah, and especially, I mean, like 106s can last you up until like 128 missions, and 130s do perfectly fine even in 144 player missions. Yeah, especially like it works really well with any loadout as well, but especially with my main soldier loadout again, like that makes any weapon insane, honestly. But yeah, so moving on to my sniper rifles. In last place is the Yeoman, just because mainly this isn't really like a sniper that you would usually use like just in game. This is mainly used for one thing. I mean, you could use it with miss monsters and it'd be fine. But the main thing it's used for is taking down the UFO on wave 25 of Twine Endurance, which is mainly what I use it for. And if not that, it's usually rarely to like stop high power level blasters from blasting, because it has it has the most insane impact build out of any sniper. So yeah, of course you got the impact perk and whatnot, because the impact on this thing is insane. And the other reason you don't want to use it as a sniper. So next up is the Neon Sniper Rifle, and pretty much the same thing. It's situational, because this thing overall, it's like, it has good rolls, but it's just any of the other snipers in front of it you might as well use over it. But yeah, definitely a very, very cool looking sniper rifle. But it also, the main thing about this is that you can actually see enemies through walls, and not only that, you can also shoot enemies through walls, or any structures, honestly. And you can also shoot through riot husky shields and shielders, so you can pretty much shoot through literally anything with this, which is insane. And that's why I said this is situational, is because the reason I put a durability roll on it, and this is my only sniper made out of ore so far and not crystal, is because this is pretty much this and the Obliterator are the main like defender weapons, mainly because defenders aren't best at aiming, and it's kind of nice when they can like see through walls and shoot through walls and whatnot. So yeah, so this is the main sniper that I give to my defenders and whatnot, of course. Yeah, definitely very cool what it looks, or how it looks and whatnot. But just using it, I just think there's better options. It's more of a defender weapon, and I just think there's better options if you're going to use a sniper rifle. Yeah, so next up is the Boombo, like an explosive sniper, of course, for completing all the 14 days of summer challenges. And this thing, when it first came out, I felt like it was really insane, and I felt like it was one of my favorite weapons. And I could have swore it used to have like 300,000 DPS, but now all of a sudden it only has, mine only has like 100,000 DPS, and I ain't changed any of the rolls or anything, in like any of my damage things, my survivor squads or whatnot. So I don't really know what happened there. But also it does apply affliction damage, but of course, in higher levels, unless if you have the damage to afflicted targets, that's not as great, or doesn't matter as much. Also, it's just that I don't know, it kind of takes some time to pull back, and yes, you don't have to, it doesn't do any more damage the more you pull it back, but if you want to actually use it as a sniper and shoot far away, you do have to pull it back. Therefore, the fire rate is pretty darn slow, but the crit potential on it is pretty darn insane. One of the best, if not the best, for a sniper rifle. But yeah, definitely good. It's just it has decreased in how much I like it over time. But next up is Crescendo, one of the brand new sniper rifles. So yeah, of course this thing looks awesome, very creative and cool looking. And at first I was worried because what it sounded like, how it said it like shoots like piercing energy beam blasts or whatever that you can also hold down to charge up and then release to do extra damage. I was kind of scared that it was just going to be a new Zapatron. And if you don't know, the Zapatron is a pretty doo-doo weapon in Save the World. But I was wrong. The crit potential is pretty darn insane on this, about the same as the Super Shredder, just I believe a tad bit more, because my Super Shredder and Crescendo have pretty much the same exact rolls, yeah. But the fire rate is pretty darn good. Reload speed is pretty darn good. I believe I do have a reload speed roll on it. Yeah, headshot damage is also pretty up there. And yeah, and it also of course pierces enemies, which is very nice. And when you eliminate enemies, of course, it makes nearby enemies dance. And yeah, when you hold it down during Rock and Riff, I've held it down and I've one-shotted with a 106 Crescendo during Rock and Riff, and fully charging it, I have one-shotted again up to like 132 smashers. So yeah, so if you hold it down and you're like in Rock and Riff, it can be like a Jax Revenge. So yeah, so pretty darn good there. But still in number one is my Super Shredder. Again, just like the Plasmatron 9000 and Hot Mix, I would say the Crescendo and Super Shredder are just about tied because, again, they have just about the same rolls, and they also have about the same fire rate. But the reason why I like the Super Shredder is just a teensy bit more is because in Save the World, I honestly kind of prefer non-scoped sniper rifles, just because the main time I'm using sniper rifles is in endurance when I'm doing endurance with other people and I'm not hosting. Of course, I'm usually using Zenith, so then I really like using my Super Shredder because it's just kind of nice not having a scope, because then it's a lot easier to see incoming takers and whatnot to go ahead and freeze them. Yeah, of course I did change some of my rolls on my Super Shredder because a lot of my rolls were just horrible last time. But now all my rolls are pretty much perfect in everybody's eyes in the Save the World community. But yeah, of course, Super Shredder looks really... Alright, guys, now on to launchers. So there's only two, which the first one is going to be the Santa's Little Helper. I believe the most crazy worthy, or impact, it has like the most impact out of any launcher in the game. And that's mainly why people like it, but at the same time, it also has insane damage. And it's also very versatile, so I did change my rolls. I used to have damage, 3 damage, 1 reload speed, and energy, but now I have energy, reload speed, or I actually have physical on this, and I used to as well. But yeah, I have physical, reload speed, 2 damage, and now I actually have damage to afflicted targets, because my 6th perk is deals affliction damage for 6 seconds, of course. And usually that wouldn't matter because it just blows them up right away. But what I have that for is because on like endurance and whatnot, when I'm using this to like get escaped mist monsters and whatnot, then of course I shoot them once, and then every time after that I shoot them that they're afflicted, it pretty much does like twice the damage, so that actually helps out quite a bit. But yeah, of course, impact is insane. It's very cool and unique looking, and yeah. But next up is the Atomizer 9000, and I will say at first I did not like this thing. I hated like how slow how slow the thing flew, the orb thing that it shoots, and also the range. But man, I upgraded this thing, and again, another thing from the Retro Sci-Fi set. But this thing, I got past the like kind of projectile shot that it does. It's actually really not that bad in the range. Honestly, if I need to use a launcher with range, like for endurance or whatever, I'll use my Santa's Little Helper. But this thing is like for crowd control. Like I've literally me and this one guy, we set up some traps on this like really high power level. Can't remember what power level. It's like 130 something, I believe. But it was a 4-player fight category 4 storm, And we had traps, but mainly the main thing that did it is we just both had 130D Atomizer 9000s. Yeah, this thing can just clap whole missions by itself, and like this thing is almost like the Pulsar 9000 in a launcher. Yeah, because again, literally like every shot, it has the like explosion. So yeah, that just adds to the crowd control. And yeah, this thing is just insane. It's also like smaller and a little different looking than most launchers. And of course I do have a durability perk, but even without that, I believe it has like the highest durability out of any launcher. It's definitely up there along with like the Dam Buster and whatnot. But yeah, because even with like I have the durability perk, but this thing can shoot quite a lot. I mean, I have usually with one, I think I usually get like 25 shots out of it or so. And then most launchers like the San Jose Helper, you only get about like 12 shots or so out of. So it's about double the durability. So the next three categories are axes, clubs, and scythes, which I actually don't have any of, mainly because in all three of those categories there's really not any good ones. I mean, clubs, there's really just not any good clubs in the game right now. The best one is probably the mic drop, and even that's not too amazing. The best axe so far is probably the Argon axe, and that's still not amazing. In scythes, you could say like the Steam Thrasher, but the only reason most people really use that is it's like the best thing to clear propanes on endurance, but it's not even really meant for actually fighting. The only good scythe, in my opinion, is the Neon Scythe. That's the only scythe that I can really think of that is actually like a good scythe. Yeah, so next up is spears. There's only one of them, which is the Sir Lancelot. Yeah, the crit potential on this thing is very, very insane. And also, the 6 perk is like adds armor and stuff, so yeah, you're pretty strong when you're using it. And the rush effect that it has, it was the first spear in the game to actually like not just be like a spear that you use like a sword, and it actually like you actually like prodded and poked like a spear would, or like you would actually do with a spear, which kind of changed the course for the actual spear subcategory in Save the World. But also the joust thing it has is really good, and it like stops enemies, and kind of like when you rush it like Mist Monsters, it kind of bounces them in front of you. But also one of the other main things this is used for is on endurance. You can actually jab away like epic mini bosses. You can like jab them off of cliffs or into the lava or whatnot. So that's very nice, but it's like it's not just used for utility. It's also an amazing combat thing. Pretty much no matter what build you're using it, but especially of course with like ninja builds that specialize with like swords and spears, of course. But next up is swords. Still only have one, which is the Spectral Blade. Pretty much everyone's favorite sword in the game. I mean, not only does it look really sick, but it also has like, I mean, it's got blue flames, and it's also got Ragnarok's face on it and whatnot. But also the like dash attack that it has is kind of nice for mobility, but it's also just really nice. You can swipe whole like walls of enemies, and yeah, crit potential once again is insane. Yeah, 6 perk also definitely helps out, and definitely just very good. And the movement speed and whatnot is also amazing. And last but not least for this video, I know this one is longer than the last one, but of course there's a lot more weapons to go over in this one. But yeah, so last one is hardware, which the only one I have is 130 God Roll, is the Husk Warper, once again from the Retro Sci-Fi set. And yeah, this thing this was the thing I was most excited for when I heard the descriptions of all the Retro Sci-Fi weapons that were at least coming out of the llamas, because the description is like something like when you use the heavy attack, it creates a black hole that pulls in and damages enemies, which just sounded awesome. And when I first tested it out, I was just like, I was using like an 82 on like power level 116 husks, so that's probably why, because I didn't really have it max perked yet. But once I did, like, I like started using it so much, and I was using it with like every loadout for like a month, and yeah, I still use it pretty often. But yeah, it just looks really cool, and also the heavy attack is honestly probably the best heavy attack out of any hardware in the game, because yeah, you just slam down and it pulls in any nearby enemies, and then also whenever you kill an enemy, at least every 4 seconds, it also does the expanding ring of damage. So crowd control again is insane on this, and yeah, in my opinion and a lot of people's opinions, this is like the best hardware in the game. And you might be saying, what about the Baron? But that's just meant for movement speed. And if you're wondering why I don't have the Baron and instead I still am using the 6 feet under, because the Baron can have 3 movement speed perks, while the 6 feet under can only have 2 movement speed perks, it's because I do have that full like steampunk set in my collection book, of course. But the reason I use the 6 feet under with just all blue rolls except for 2 movement speed rolls that are legendary, is because I like to, when I want to use it to go fast, I like to go fast, but not like super fast, because I feel like with the Baron I just go too fast, and I just go fast, like faster than I usually need to, because usually when I'm using my 6 feet under is for jail builds, when I'm just running around repairing walls when they need them. And I just feel like it's kind of hard to just turn and repair walls when you're running that fast. So yes, that's why I use the 6 feet under. I just feel like it has the perfect movement speed, in my opinion. Yeah. So that is it. So I don't know when or if I'm going to make another one of these videos. Because again, the main reason I'm doing this is just kind of like a celebration for the end of, like the first like milestone of Fortnite, the end of the first 10 seasons. And mainly save the world, like all the schematics so far, but also just because I will probably be getting to 131 within the next couple weeks, and yeah, this is kind of just like a last weapon thing before I get there, and of course I'm always going to be like maxing out weapons and whatnot. But if you want to keep on seeing all that, of course always check out my Fortnite end of season results videos that I do. I always go over my Save the World stuff on there, and I will still be going over my Save the World stuff on this season's here in a couple days for you guys now, or like a week or so. But yeah, I believe that's pretty much it for this episode. Yeah, again, if you want to look at anything any closer, just go on my Fortnite DB. You can, that website's actually really awesome. I mean, you can see how much money, or how much V-Bucks I've spent on unslotting stuff, how much Evo mats I have, how much materials I have overall. You can see all of my loadouts that I use, and whatever else. So yeah, so also I will link it in the description, but yes, I have actually created a Fortnite Save the World specific Instagram page that I've had for a little while now. But yeah, I basically just post news, a whole bunch of stuff from the Discord, because I'm on there pretty much daily. And yeah, if you want your Fortnite news and just some cool content, then definitely check that out. It will be linked in the description. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed, and I know I got like one comment on the last one saying like, oh, these are like horrible weapons, but this one I actually know what I'm talking about, and like I know these weapons, or some of them of course aren't that great, like the ghost pistol and tiny instrument of death and whatnot. I think those are the only two on here that like nobody really considers that great. But all the other ones are pretty darn good, if not some of the best weapons in the game, because I would say even like pretty much everybody considers the best ARs in the game to be the Gamatron 9000, Pain Train, Wraith, and the Bundle Bus. Yeah, so overall that is finally it for this video, so hopefully you guys all enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed the gameplay, and I will see you all later. Bye!